Oh, wow. I'm Jacob. I'm an alcoholic. Uh, yeah, I definitely tried to recommend other people to talk. My life's been a little crazy. I think my friend Ryan's on here. I've been talking to him a lot. Uh, it's a lot of like chaos from like outside of me, but also a lot of chaos from inside of me. So I'm in like this really like weird place in my sobriety right now. And so I don't want to speak because like I know a lot of people at this meeting and I like a lot of people at this meeting. And so I don't often want to be like, oh yeah, let me just bring my absolute like crazy to the serious spiritual meeting. But Alice asked me and Alice is gonna get me. So and you're gonna get me where I'm at today. So yeah, so my sobriety date's January 21st, 2020. I have a home group. So, all right, so the recording's back. So yeah, I if you didn't hear, I have a sobriety date. I have a sponsor. I have a home group. My sobriety date is not my first sobriety date. A big part of my story is I relapsed at 13 years sober, because I wasn't doing anything for like five. I was no longer a member of AA at 13 years sober. You couldn't have told me that at 13 years sober. I didn't know that I hadn't been to a meeting in 3 years, or that I only had a sponsor who he was a phone number in my phone that I hadn't talked to or called in like 5 years. I didn't know that. I still thought I was in the middle of it. Uh, so yeah, so I relapsed right before COVID, came back, uh, got out of rehab about a week before everything went on Zoom, and got very active in Alcoholics Anonymous on Zoom. My topic for this, it's so funny. Like it's what I'm actually going through today in step 11. So when Alice asked me, well, what topic do you want? It was like really easy, and it's one of those obscure like lines in the 11th step portion of the big book that like Alice was like, no, no, I need a portion from 86 through 88. And I'm like, no, that's on 87. Like, I promise it's there. And it's something that like isn't often talked about, I think at meetings and stuff. But my topic, be quick to see where religious people are right, make use of what they offer. And so like basically where I'm at in my life today is like, that's what I'm doing. Like if you would have told me in 2006 when I came to AA, or even like in 2020 when I came back to AA after relapsing, that I would be like meeting with clergy to ask for spiritual guidance, I would have thought you were absolutely insane. So I'll tell you a little bit about my life and my story, just for to make it make a little sense. Yeah, I grew up. I went to private religious school, K through 12. I grew up Jewish, not like a super like religious household, but definitely like a Jewish household. And I went to like a private Jewish day school for K through 12. And I was one of like the typical like religious school kids that when I graduated, like I'm done. I've had my fill of religious education. I don't need any more. Uh, and it was right around that time, like towards the end of high school, I got really very much into drugs and alcohol. And it was definitely one of those things where like, I can't put the timing on it, but maybe when I started getting loaded at around 16 years old, that's when like my spark kind of for the more spiritual side of life went out. Couldn't tell you if that's true or not. In retrospect, it sounds pretty good, but I don't know if that was the exact timing, but it would track. Uh, and I became, I realized I was gay early on. I was convinced any religious people judged that. For me, I was just very anti-religious, anti-organized religion. Really any, I was just one of the I was one of those typical people with a religious upbringing that the practice of the religion was beat into me, but I never gave the spiritual side of things a fair hearing. Uh, so So yeah, let me get my timer back on so I can keep time. So yeah, I just continue getting loaded. I'm the type of alcoholic. I didn't know I was an alcoholic when I came to AA. I thought I was a drug addict, but when I'm honestly looking at my patterns with drugs and alcohol, like I'm an alcoholic. Like drugs would become a problem and I wouldn't touch that drug again, but I would always go back to alcohol. Like alcohol was always like the most confusing part. Uh, it was the thing that I would always go back to and convince myself I didn't have a problem with, even though it was pretty clear. Like I'm a fighter. I get pretty violent when I drink, and I'm not good at fighting, so I just end up like getting beat up a lot. I go to jail. Like I don't go to jail for DUIs. I go to jail for assault. And yeah, it's I'm that kind of drunk, and I'm the kind of drunk that has a bad couple of nights, and it's like, okay, let me just go smoke pot every day until the next time I drink. And then when I drink, just like hope for the best, and that went on for a long time. There was a lot of wreckage. Like I didn't know I was like a pretty low bottom, and I didn't know I had like a really wild story until I came into AA and started hearing and started sponsoring people and hearing their fifth steps and being like, that's it. Like, that's all. Like, that's all. Like, that's like your dark, like I just didn't know. I had no perspective. Like, I thought the things I was doing was normal. Like, I thought the fights I was getting in was normal. I thought the lies I was telling was normal. Like, right before my senior year of college, like I was a good student, like my freshman and sophomore year. And then grades start slipping, like drugs start increasing, alcohol starts increasing. Like right before senior year, I just forget to go to class, and I fail out of school. And I think my problem is, oh, I'm going to be homeless. My parents are financing school, so I come up with a bright idea like, well, I have keys to my department at my big state university. Let me just go steal some letterhead. And I stole letterhead and like forged a note that I gave to my parents, basically congratulating me for graduating. I like these are the kinds of things that I do because I'm just like, I told my parents, well, I need like this much, like I don't know, like I think I said like $2,000 or $3,000 so I can move to New York City. And like like I don't know that like these things are heinous and like not normal. And like I don't know that like I'm not supposed to treat like the people that love me this way. And I do love my parents, and I did love my parents, and I just didn't have the words at the time to tell them, like, to give them the warning that, like, hey, like, my alcoholism is going to be like way worse than, way bigger than like my love for you. Like, I don't have the power to stop that. Like, you're on the tracks, get off it. Like, if I could go back and tell them that, I would. I have told them that now. So they know, what they would do with it if I relapse. I don't know. That's, on them. But, I don't have those words. And so then, like a month later, I'm in jail for like getting in a very bad fight. And that's who I call. I call my parents. And tell my, like my problem in jail isn't alcohol still, even though I was drunk when I got in the fight. My problem is I'm in jail. And my parents ask, okay, well, we'll bail you out. We'll get you an attorney. My parents aren't rich. So, like, it's a big ask, but you have to come home and go to rehab. And so I say yes. And they fly to New York City. I'm in Rikers Island. They get me out. And, it's just my dad, not my mom. And my dad picks me up at the Rikers Island pickup point, like over by, there's like a big boat called the Barge over in the Bronx. Uh, and, my dad picks me up over there. And then I leave him at Grand Central Station, and I don't even realize, I think my friend Ralph's on, I met Ralph and talked about my relationship with my father. Like it was like only a year and a half ago, like almost 20 years after this incident. This was in 2003 that I even considered what that plane ride was like for my father. Imagine flying to New York. It's a 3-hour flight from Kansas City, and then flying back without your kid that had just promised. I had never even considered like the feeling. Like that was the kind of person I was when I had like rejected the spiritual side of life, like that's just who I become. And it's not because I want to become that. It's just like that's who I become. I don't know any better. And so I go on for like another year, like this. But before I walk into the rooms of AA in San Francisco for the first time. Uh, I can tell you about my last year just so you can get an idea. Like my last year was my experiment in controlled drinking, which I think was pretty successful because I successfully controlled my drinking, and through that I wanted to kill myself literally every single day. Like controlled drinking for me looked like smoking an ounce of pot a week, which if you smoke pot, like smoking an ounce a week requires all day, every day effort. And then just drinking at the bars on weekends, and I would do things like tell the bartender to pour the drink week. I would count my drinks. I would usually stop at 4. 9 times out of 10, I'd stop at 4. This went on for a year, so I probably had 3 or 4 blackouts in that year. My last night of drinking was nothing different. It was just, I woke up wanting to kill myself. I smoked pot, went out drinking. Nothing different happened that night. I was just, I would, at this point in my life, I had all the things I think I needed to be happy. I'd lined up everything I need to be happier, and I've fallen into this trap in sobriety too, is money, relationship, and house. If I have those 3 things, if I have the good job, if I have a place to live that's nice, and I have a relationship, I should be happy. And I had all that when I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, and I was just confused as to why I wanted to kill myself every day. And so I came to AA and I liked it. I think I'm really lucky that I still like meetings a lot. And I liked it. And I didn't get sober for a month. I'm the type that comes to AA loaded. If you're on this meeting loaded, like great. Like seriously, the message gets carried to me loaded. Like I do, if you're one that doesn't talk to loaded people, like please stop that. Like I have to like hear the message when I'm loaded. Like you don't know what can get through, like because what got through to me, I didn't know how to be sober, and then all of a sudden, I want to be sober. So I get sober, I work the steps, and let me tell you about like, oh God, I was such a I was that really annoying sponsee that called like 7 times a day when I was brand new in 2006, like I was just super annoying, and I would argue with my sponsor about God. Like, look, my first sponsor, he was 3 months sober. I was his first sponsee. Like it, and I know like a lot of sponsors that are just like, oh, I hope like your first sponsee is just as annoying as like you were, like he got more than that with me. I just called him all the time and argued with him about God, about everything. I mean, I remember, he was just like, look, like if you don't come to the meeting tonight, will we still have the meeting? And I'm like, well, yeah, obviously. And he's like, great, the meeting's your higher power. It's greater than you. You can't stop the meeting. And I just rolled with that. And honestly, I rolled with that until pretty recently. Like it's just recently that things are starting to change in that regard. I always just thought like the rooms and Alcoholics Anonymous and the people like collectively would be like my concept of a higher power. Like it honestly it worked for me because, like let me tell you, I worked a pretty solid program for 5 years and then a decent program for like 2 or 3, stuff started slipping. It was the same thing that happens. I'm like 8 years sober. I met my now husband who all us, a lot of you actually know him. We've been married now, like it'll be 14 years in February. I met him when I was 2 years sober. Like we bought a house in like 2017. I had a great job that I couldn't have gotten when I was sober. And here's like the crazy thing. I fell into the same thing I fell into before was that those things became God for me. They became my higher power. And isn't it crazy that like we keep falling in, like we get sober and we keep, like I love when someone comes to me and they're just like, oh, I'm making money my higher power. And I was like, again? Yeah. I'm always like, well, guess what? Like you'll arrest it. And then like in a couple years, like we'll probably come visit this again. It's like, I fell into the same thing with, the house, the relationship and the job. And that's supposed to make me happy. And that's my program. And I didn't even know I was miserable, like I remember when I told my husband that I'd relapsed, I was traveling for work and he picked me up from the airport and I said, hey, I'm going to rehab tomorrow. Like I relapsed 3 months, He was like, how long ago did you relapse? And I was like, I don't know, like 3, 4 months ago. He's like, you got really nice a few months ago. I mean, that's the thing. I was so wound up that like my relapse was like a blessing to the people around me, because I get, without some sort of higher power, without God in my life, without the prayer meditation, without the sponsees, without that stuff, I just become a lunatic, sober, start raving sober, and so look, I go to rehab and I get out and COVID happens and I'm here like, seeking God again. And look, like I went back and started working the same program I worked when I was a year sober the first time because I was working a really good program. I had a sponsor, home group, making amends, all of the stuff. And that served me for a while, and look, I'm going to talk a little bit about like, where I'm at today. So, today I'm back in a university, which, I mean, I was trying to figure out like how am I gonna how am I gonna do this talk without talking about stuff controversial? And it just came to me, like there's that portion on I think the bottom of 18 where it's like we would wish nothing more than to talk about like the religious aspects of our program without controversy. And we'll do our best, but also like real tolerance of others and of other people's shortcomings and a respect for their opinions or attitudes, which make us like collectively more useful to others. And I just realized like there's no way around it. Like being a Jewish student on a college campus every day in 2024 has been terrible. It's been the absolute worst year of my life. I've never experienced such anti-Semitism towards me. The things I hear on a daily basis and see on a daily basis have destroyed my mental health. And, I'm so glad my friend Ryan is on here because, I met Ryan at, Fellowship of the Spirit in Colorado over the summer. And, and being Jewish was something that I'd hide because I felt like that was just controversial in 2024. Like I felt like just me saying that is like a point of controversy in 2024. And and the cool thing that, and the cool thing that happened, I went to Colorado and Ali was there. I don't know if he's on here, but he gave a beautiful talk. He was like throwing up the whole time because of the altitude. And, but we had like me and Ali had a great time and Ryan was there. And Ryan got up on a panel and the first thing, the first thing he said on the panel was, a big part of my relationship with God is I'm Jewish and, and I have a Jewish practice. And, and I had a really good talk with him after that because, like it's something in New Orleans that like I can't talk about in Alcoholics Anonymous. Like I feel like I can't go to my home group and bring this to AA. I really have. It's what I felt. I've actually gotten a lot of hostility within the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous in the past year over this. There's people that wear anti-Semitic pins in meetings in New Orleans within Alcoholics Anonymous. And look, when I complain to people, oh, well, it's against the traditions. I'm like, yeah, but the traditions also state like every idiot gets a vote in AA. Like we all, it's like AA is really, it's chaotic and beautiful and it's, it's what it's all supposed to be. But, it's been a very tough year. And I felt like I've being, on a college campus every day because I'm getting a PhD amidst a bunch of protesting and craziness and just what seems like hate, and I talked about it with Ryan and he asked me a question that changed the course of, this was in July of my last 5 months. He said, Jacob, are you just defending being Jewish or have you done anything to actually celebrate being Jewish? And it was just like, oh my God, holy shit, holy shit. Because I hadn't been like, I felt like I was on the defensive, like in AA, out of AA, just walking around the city for the last year. And I wasn't doing anything to celebrate it. And so I started reaching out to like the local Jewish community here, which has been like really amazing. It's been, I feel more supported in the last year. I'm learning not just about the practice that I learned when I was in high school, but I'm learning about, the spirituality behind it. A big, the reason I didn't like Jewish services was because, it's all in Hebrew, which I only speak marginally well. I have no idea what anyone's saying or going on. And it was a big I would tell people, I don't like that. It doesn't feel personal. And so, and I went to, services maybe 2 months ago on a Shabbat, and I was having Shabbat dinner at a rabbi's house the night before, and I asked a guy who's Orthodox, like, what do you do like when you just don't understand? And he's like, Jacob, why don't you read the English? And we go really fast. And he's like, why don't you just read the English portion and just focus on like 2 or 3 sentences? And while we're going really fast and we're 5 pages ahead of you, why don't you ask what those sentences mean to you? And I'm just like, oh, like anytime I talk to someone religious, I'm just like, AA is not that special. That's exactly what's written in We Agnostics. Don't let any prejudice like hold you back from asking yourself what these terms actually mean to you. That's what this man is telling me. He's just like, why don't you just focus on that? Ask what means to you. This isn't about, like, he was like, observing the Sabbath isn't about being miserable observing the Sabbath. It's a celebration of God. Like, that's what he told me. He's like, we're here celebrating God. And if this feels like a chore, you're doing it wrong. And it's just like, whoa, and that's exactly what we do in AA. Like oftentimes in AA, I'll forget that like I make the amends to celebrate God, that I go meet that sponsee to celebrate God, that it's all about God. Like often it's lost in the process, and it's the same thing I was talking about, with my religious education. Like it was so pounded into us. Well, what's the process? What's the task? What are we doing? And oftentimes I'll forget, and I think a lot of us forget that no, like everything that I do in Alcoholics Anonymous and out is about how can I best serve God and the people about me. I sat down with one of the local rabbis, maybe 3 months ago, and it was such an interesting conversation. Here's the thing. I thought Orthodox Judaism hated gays. I grew up in a religious school. I was in the closet. It was the 90s, which was, a little bit different time than 2024 towards LGBT people, like I'm pretty sure, like, I think I feel like I've achieved equality on that front. Like I don't feel unequal in 2024 society at all, not like growing up in the 90s. And it was interesting. I asked one of these rabbis, because I'm going to like the most Orthodox synagogue, hanging out with the most Orthodox people and learning from them right now. And I asked him, I'm just like, well, like I'm gay, I'm married. Like, is this a problem? Like, can I bring my husband to these events? And he's just like, there's 613 Jewish laws. He's like, it would be pretty short-sighted if all we did was focus on the one that you don't follow. And he was just like, why don't you just follow the laws that you can follow? He's like, every good deed's a good deed, And then I told him, I told him I always thought like, Orthodox Jews were like a little bit anti-gay. And then he's like, well, did you ever ask a rabbi? And I was just like, no. Like I'd never even asked, it's like I just feel like We Agnostics explains it so much, where it's like I'm, who's being prejudiced here? The one who has this preconceived notion that really I just made up in my head about religious people, when I never thought, oh, maybe I should go ask that religious person what they actually think. And maybe, even if I don't like the answer, maybe I can just say, thanks for, giving me your insight. And so that, it's just been this incredible journey, and it has been a little crazy, the last, I'll tell you, like the last like 6 weeks of my life, I've become like, I've gotten a little bit outspoken in New Orleans, and on campus about how me and some other Jewish students have been treated, and ignored by administration. And it's I've gone somewhat viral in I'm known around New Orleans, and it's made meetings like incredibly uncomfortable. There's people that no longer talk to me at AA meetings, for things I've never mentioned AA at a public level. I don't bring that into AA, but there's people who think I've brought controversy into Alcoholics Anonymous at this point, which, when I talk to people who are steeped in the traditions and work programs, and I talk to my sponsor, like, I'm just so grateful that like, you know, like I just did a fifth step with someone, and you know, we were talking about behavior, not this. And he was like, well, are you, he asked me, did you write this on your fourth step because you find this behavior objectionable? Or did you write this on your fourth step because you think if you shared this at an AA meeting, the people in the meeting would find it objectionable? Like, which one is it? Because if it's the latter, it's like that's not what the fourth step's about. The fourth step is about identifying the points in my inventory, you know, the behavior. Where am I acting in ways that I find objectionable? Like, how can I not go to sleep at night? And let me tell you, like, the behavior that I've been exhibiting the past 6 weeks, I'm sleeping great. You know, I'm doing great. Like, I feel more support, you know. I feel like God has just picked me up in the last few months and carried me to this like whole new place in my life that, like I said at the beginning of this talk, you never would have told me I'd be going to a rabbi's house every single Friday night for the last few months for Shabbat dinner when I was newly sober. You never would have told me this. You never would have told me this last year. You know, like it's just been, you know, and just thank God I'm open-minded enough. You know, like let me tell you, I had to hit a sober bottom in Alcoholics Anonymous where it's like I felt like the people, you know, this is why I've had to make my God bigger. The people in Alcoholics Anonymous, I feel like they failed me. You know, it's great, and that's what's so cool about Alcoholics Anonymous and this God of my own understanding and staying connected and having my morning, you know, I have a morning practice and I always have, like, you know, since I came back, I sit down for 20 minutes every morning and think about the day ahead. You know, I drink my coffee. You know, I don't have my phone on. I think about the day ahead. And thank God, you know, I don't think without that, that I would have been open to the experience that I've been having the last few months to where, you know, to where my world, you know, I'm steeped enough in the principles and with the right people guiding me within Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, I'm calling people like, you know, like my friend Ryan, who I'm going to stop shouting out or he's going to get a big ego. But you know, like I know who to call that can guide me, that are living by the same principles I'm living. Because like that's another thing. Like I don't have to live in the same principles that everyone in AA lives by. You know, I have to find a higher power I can do business with. And if I'm not connected, and if I'm not doing that morning practice, and if I'm not shutting off what's up here, I don't even know what's possible because I had all these preconceived notions even 2 years ago about religion, you know, about organized religion, about all of this stuff. That shit's just melted away. Let me tell you, you know, my political polarization in the last year has melted away. You know, like I have political beliefs and I can look at people with differing political beliefs and be like, oh, I get what they're, you know, that wasn't me. It was circumstances outside of me. And, you know, and it was just me having an open mind to all of this. You know, it's like I see people walking around all the time in these like binary bubbles in a whole world that like has been shown to me is totally gray. You know, it's like it's not left and right and Republican and Democrat and Jewish and not, you know, it's just like everything's gray. And it's like I've just been so much more open to listening to people because of this with views that I disagree with. You know, and just telling them like, oh, I'm really glad like you could tell me, you know, asking them questions. Why do you think this way? Tell me your experience that leads you to think this way, you know, and then being receptive to the response. But you know, and that's not who I was at any time in my sobriety. You know, I joined AA in 2006, and at no time in my sobriety was I like that, you know, yeah, I mean, you know, I mean, I feel like I'm brand new again in AA because I'm having this whole new experience outside of AA that I never would have been able to find if I was not sober or, you know, not in AA. You know, it's so incredible how this has happened. And you know, I've got about 4 minutes left, and I feel like if I keep going, I'm just gonna ramble. So I'm gonna end it right there.
You. Thank you, John. I would encourage people to put their hands up. I'm going to go straight to Teresa because I know Teresa's got to go. Teresa, please, my friend, come in.
Thank you, Teresa Alcoholic. Thank you, Jacob. They always say when you're going through some shit, that's the best time to share, Jacob. We love that kind of stuff. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I do have a question, but I was thinking when I heard you share, I'm like, well, there goes my bitching about my professor who's just an asshole. My statistics class, I can get through this if you're getting through this. So thank you for that, giving me hope. And with all that, I wanted to ask, the beautiful thing about step 11 is about, is it possible these religious people are right, and revisiting that. Uh, how do you apply with all that's happening? How do you apply in the midst of that the pause when agitated, right? Turn and go to help others. Look at him laughing. I love you. I'm glad I got to ask you that question before I go into class. Go ahead. Thank you.
That's a really good question, Teresa. You're much wiser than me. I think the pause when agitated might be the next phase of my development. If I'm being perfectly honest, that it's very difficult, especially walking around campus, to not get in the super reactive mode. Uh, but it is stuff that's on my mind. I'll probably take it with me tomorrow when I'm back on campus. So, thanks for that question.
And Jacob, I didn't get to say it, wanting to get Teresa in, but I really want to thank you for a beautiful share. And I want to just encourage people to put their hands up and engage Jacob in questions and dialogue. You know, as you were talking, I was thinking about the fifth concept, right? The minority opinion, and how we sometimes use the 10th tradition to shut people down. Like, you know, you can't talk about that. Well, that's not what the tradition says. The tradition says the group ought not have an opinion. But, you know, as a free Black woman, I really appreciate you talking about your experience of being othered. And I think it's important for all of us to engage Jacob in this conversation. Andrew, please come in.
Oh, buttons. Good evening, beautiful souls all. Why do I say that? Normally, years ago, and in my early AA, I would go, oh, those self propulsing bipeds, they're just in my way. It takes a while through this layers of fear and closed mindedness. Everyone is of value or not. So I have some pretty I truly identify with your A path there, Jacob. Thank you very much. And thank you, team here on FOTS. And actually, no, Ali, years ago, I met him. He's got more sobriety than me. I met him years ago um, when he was just starting. Um, can I ask? It's only, just recently I thought, oh my gosh, that little thread of fears running through all my life, through all the center of the universe up here. And I'm thinking, what other fears in my life have caused me pain where I was not able to see the whole picture? Can you identify with that?
I mean, it's a very good question. I mean, for me, I'm the hero in my own story, as we all are. Uh, it's why through all of this, I've had people in my life who I rate. There's people I see on here who I call and talk to and help give me perspective. Uh, so yeah, there's things that I often think, especially in the last year, like in Bill's story, it melted the icy, the intellectual ice cap, and that's often what I feel like when I don't know if seeing the whole picture is ever possible, but seeing new things in the picture definitely has happened. It's definitely happened to me in the last year, but really it comes through talking to people that I trust and being totally open and honest with them. about like what's actually going on in my life. Uh, and being open to, you know, I mean, I know people in AA, you know, might say that they don't give advice, but you know, a lot of people on here have given me good advice, and you know, and it's, you know, I still look at it like, you know, it's God that's in charge. But when I call like 3 or 4 people and all of them kind of are telling me the same thing, and I'm looking at like, you know, why am I the only one that disagrees with this? You know, like they're not involved in this situation. Uh, you know that says something to me. You know, there's someone I call who, you know, and I think we all do it. I think we call and then we tell you the story when we're on the phone with you, and then you start responding, and then we go to defending the story, you know, and it's like, no, but let me just tell you again what this, you know, it's like, I think we all do it because I get a lot of, you know, I hear a lot of 10th steps that do it. Uh, and you know, this one woman I know is like, oh no, you've had your turn. She's like, you called me, I'm gonna get my turn now, you know, and it's like, I kind of need, you know, that's the kind of stuff that makes me realize, hey, like, you know, shut my mouth and listen a little bit more. You know, it really is like listening to a lot of other people, which I do try to do. But you know, a lot of time that's like super challenging, you know. So, but I like that question. Thanks.
Thank you, Andrew. There's a question in the chat that I want to give you, Jacob. Kate wants to know, what did you or would you suggest doing when there's fear around local in-person meetings? And you feel as though, do you feel that you've fallen out of love with Alcoholics Anonymous?
So I definitely haven't fallen out of love with Alcoholics Anonymous. There's definitely one meeting that is particularly hostile, and I don't know if it's super healthy, but I go there just to go there. Like it's like I'm not changing my meeting on account of like some people that I think are a little bit hateful. Like I'm not going to change my routine or like, you know, like, look, something I've learned is like I can't ever let anyone chase me out of any room of Alcoholics Anonymous, like ever. You know, like I'm here for my sobriety. Like, I remember talking to Alice, you know, it's like, you know, everyone's welcome. I might not have to be the one to help that person. Alice told me one time, you know, and the book says that like we can't be helpful to all people, but I can, pray to God, like, hey, God, like help me keep a kindly and tolerant view of all of them. And, let me tell you, like when there's some people who I, personally know who are openly hostile towards me, and I greet them warmly with a smile when I'm at the meeting. I greet everyone in Alcoholics Anonymous. They tend to scurry away when I greet them. They get very uncomfortable. I don't. But, let me tell you, like it's also very important that I did change a meeting that I go to, and I go to a meeting once a week that, is very supportive of me because, I feel like, maybe I'm going to like one meeting a week out of spite, but I can't go to like 7 meetings a week out of spite, like just to like prove a point and be there, like, I've got to I also need to be, support, and I don't want to paint a picture that like AA has like failed me, AA is full of humans, like, our human powers fail us, like if I'm putting all of my stock in like love and affection and attention from members of Alcoholics Anonymous, like my bar is like super low. Like you all are a bunch of drunks, and if I'm putting all of my stock in what you all think of me, it's, like we're all a bunch of like drunks and criminals and like crazy people, and I am too. Like I'm one of you, I'm also like in this. So, if anything, this has made my love for Alcoholics Anonymous even greater. And it's made like my purpose in Alcoholics Anonymous and what we're doing, which is getting a relationship with God. Even, if anything, it's just intensified like really what my purpose is in AA, which is, to understand God a little bit more, and help bring, that vision of God out into the world. So it's a really good question. It's a, complicated answer, but definitely like, it hasn't made me I love AA, and I still love AA, and an experience like this isn't going to get me to stop loving AA.
Thank you, Jacob. Raven, please come in with your question.
Hi, my name's Raven, and I'm hi, Olive. I'm an alcoholic and addict. It's good to see you. Look great, Olive. You really do. Anywho, thank you so much, y'all. I haven't been here for a long, long time. Jacob, I wasn't going to come tonight because I was waiting on a call, but well, I'm so glad I came. I have been really struggling here, with pretty much what you were talking about, and you know, I grew up in the 60s. I've seen a lot of stuff. I I always tell myself, don't talk about any of this, but I feel very lost. I probably talk too many people, talk to too many people, and I'm not used to, even as a woman my age, saying it's okay to follow my heart. It's okay to have my thoughts, and I don't have to invalidate them myself before you invalidate them for me. And I'm really starting to get real involved in some of the women's groups up here, kind of politically based, and I feel really like I should be doing this, and I started feeling like I was losing sight of AA. And
Raven, what's your question for Jacob?
oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. We love you. What's your question?
My question is, I you know what, also, I don't even think I have a question. I just want to say thank you, Jacob. I'm sorry. I'm really scared. I just want to say thank you. Thank you. You really helped me tonight. And if you put your number in the chat, I would love to be able to talk to you more if you would be willing to do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Raven. I love you. Jackie, you are up. Please come in with your question.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jackie, and I'm an alcoholic. Thank you, Jacob, for opening up that Pandora's box. Because the thing I heard you say, and my question is, how do you, I don't have to live by other people's principles. I have to live by mine. And so many times for me, I think I have to measure up to everybody else. And so in my go-to is, screw that, and I'll leave that meeting. I'll change sponsors. I'll do this. I'll do that. And I can sit here and tell you, yeah, I can see where I'm trying to control the situation. What is your first step when you realized that you were living in a world up to other people's principles and not your own true self? Oh, and I want to thank you for talking about make use of what other places offer, because that's been a source of contention with my sponsor and me, because I'm more involved in something else rather than, no, that's not true to say either, but it's been a source of contention because I bring in this outside literature that just when we two meet, and she doesn't want to hear it. So anyway, I feel like I'm doing something wrong when I look at and follow my heart and follow my truth. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie.
So what the first step when I'm going through that? I think, it's real easy for me to talk about this because this has been kind of an ongoing thing for a year. But I think when I'm putting myself in places in time, it was kind of more of it wasn't a door being kicked open, it was a door being slowly cracked open. So I don't know if there is a first step to that, but I do know that as it was happening, I already had a daily practice with an Alcoholics Anonymous that was able to carry me into this practice. So I think just having that daily practice already established might be the first step, because I didn't just wake up one day and be oh, I'm enlightened. I'm not even like that now. It's just I've had an experience the last few months, but I would just say for me, having a daily practice has saved me.
Thank you. Mr. White, please come in.
Name is Ralph White. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey,
Don't
Ralph.
start squirming, Jacob. Why didn't you start squirming? You know, I do have a couple of questions for you.
Yes.
As a young man who is not a sipper, and I'm speaking of you, just like
Mhm.
me, you don't sip on anything.
Mhm.
So when you go into anything, you go all in. What has been the challenge in, if there's been a challenge, because I've liked some of your other responses, if there has been a challenge in um, primary purpose,
Mhm.
when I jump into something, I tend to jump into something. A lot of people think that when we get sober, we got sober just to be in here. I don't think that. But tell me the challenges in navigating primary purpose as it relates to your sobriety, particularly you, young man,
Mhm.
and your program outside of that. You're in a very challenging uh, academic pursuit right now. And then um, um, the other pursuit that now is really engaging you, and that is whatever's going on in the hostility directed and all the things around that. So, how have you been navigating that particular challenge, if it is one?
It's a really good question. It's something that's been on my mind a lot. As far as like the academic pursuits, like one of your sponsees told me, like, you're more than a grad student, spirituality has to come first, before I started my PhD program. And it's something that I've taken to heart in this program, because I've seen what happens, like the job that I got, my first bout of sobriety, I put that first and it didn't work out so well for me. So I think having that information already like helps me realize what my primary purpose is. As far as like what's been going on, you know, uh, like lately in terms of like some maybe potentially controversial stuff that's been going on in my personal life, it is something that's on my mind. And, I say yes to people that want me to sponsor them. And I know that, there's people in AA that, they don't have what I want. And I know that for people in AA, I don't have what they want. I've kind of come to a place of acceptance on that, that I'm still able to be useful to people both in and out of AA. It's a conversation I had about 6 weeks ago with someone in AA where like I was wanting to rein in the activism because I didn't want to really do it anymore, but it felt like God was maybe calling me. Like there was just things popping up in my life, and she was like, "Well, she's like, fight it or don't." She was like, anything from that was like clear signs from God that I fought, like God just walked me through anyway. She was like, fighting it's just a waste of time. So like I'm trying not to think about like should I or should I not be doing this. I'm really just like, taking one task at a time. But it's definitely something that's on my mind. Is this diminishing my usefulness to people in Alcoholics Anonymous? And it's, I don't have that answer. I just don't know. Uh, I do know that I show up to meetings. I am helpful at the meetings. I leave the controversy at the door. If people bring it up, I am like, you can call me after the meeting. Let's not talk about this here. Uh, I try to keep that sane on my end. But your question is what's on my mind. To answer it, I don't know. It's something that's on my mind, and it's something I ask myself every morning. So, you're super in tune with what's up here.
So, I don't like to leave hands up. I don't, and we're out of time. I want to ask the three of you, does anybody have a burning question? Because I'll take one burning question. No? Samantha or Sin? Samantha, you're burning? Okay. Sin, are you okay?
If Sin's burning more, she can go. No, I that was just incredible. Wow, Jacob, thank you, thank you, thank you. I was interested. I relate very much a different subject, but generally everything. What is your biggest, the essence of your biggest takeaway right now? What is your new, this growth spurt and new unveiling?
I mean, the biggest takeaway is that, oh God, I have no idea. I put my number in the chat. Call me tomorrow. I'm gonna think about that tonight. I don't know. I'd just be making something up if I answered it, so I'm not
Well,
going
thank you. That was incredible.
Raquel and Sin, please come back next week. I'm so sorry I wasn't able to get to you. Jacob, that was beautiful. You know that I love you, and I appreciate that you're my friend and you love me back. This was a lovely meeting. I'm turning it back to you, John. I'm glad you guys are all here.